welcome back to my channel. This is Petra and today I want to talk about my podcast journey. So I've started filming season 1 of my podcast during the lockdown. And it was just available on YouTube. My podcast is called To Be an Artist and it was inspired by the book To Be an Artist by Anula Kolakovska, which is this book. To Be an Artist is a conversation with today's successful and prominent artists from a variety of disciplines. Musicians, visual artists, digital artists, poets, writers, activists, and scholars. All of them discuss what it means to be an artist today, how they perceive their craft and their world, and the role of art in society. They agree that artists' creativity and success does not only come from the intense focus on their craft, but also from the development of a worldview, from their wider vision and understanding of the world in which they live. So I came across this book several years ago and I read it multiple times since, and I was so inspired by it, and I think this book really empowered me to start creating, started to do my own thing and put myself out there more, because before I was auditioning, trying to get a job, but at the same time not really having any pride in what I do or being very confident in what I do. I was just like, I'm a dancer, that means I have to earn money with dancing. And it really stinted my growth as an artist and as a creative, because I was just working for other people, but also I wasn't really sure of what I want to express or who I am and what is important to me. I just went from job to job to job to job. When I read this book, I witnessed so many conversations, thoughts artists had, different life situations that these artists had in the book. Some things in the book they talk about is understanding yourself, remaking yourself, recreating yourself, personal aesthetics, being true to yourself, claiming your art and transforming lives, writing with music, seeing the world, listening to a recording of the world, shooting the world, visual meaning of technology, art and culture, the politics of art, writing and living in the community, the languages of art, spreading joy and being an artist. So that's kind of like chapter by chapter what the book talks about, but each chapter represents a different artist. And this book was really empowering for me because it's basically, if you're human, you can be an artist, because everybody's got a story to tell. So, and that kind of started with me, starting to create. And when I started to create, so many good things came back to me, because I think as soon as you put yourself out there and you put your energy out there and you're in people's face, or like people see that you're doing stuff and people watch you perform and they just feel your energy of, this energy of just always going forward, good things will come back to you. People started calling me more. I got involved in so many cool projects that I didn't even know existed before. In general, I'm inspired by people's life stories. I read biographies a lot. I watch documentaries all the time. So this is the thing that that really attracts me. So after reading this book, my life changed significantly. So during the lockdown, I was thinking, what can I do to keep on putting myself out there? Because I didn't want to sit at home and do nothing. And I didn't want to sit at home and be depressed. So one of the things I started was this podcast. In the beginning, just on YouTube, and that was because I wanted to start building a YouTube channel anyway, and also because I knew how it works and I didn't need to, do anything new. So I just started this podcast, and I named it To Be an Artist Too. So I kind of wanted to do the podcast version of this book, which is just like speak to people, different artists, visual artists, poets, actors, dancers, you name it. Anyone I knew, I reached out to, and it was like, hey, do you want to be on the podcast? So yeah, so that's kind of how it started. In the first season, I had John Blackburn, who's a drummer.
When I was at college, I wish I had read a couple of books just on straight marketing, like in the 20th century or the 21st century. And if anybody cares, I would suggest checking out a guy called Seth Godin.
Isabel Patterson, who's a screen actress, just told me you just did your first German work.
Yeah, so it's an adaptation of Charlotte Link's best-selling crime novel, The Search, or Die Suche in Germany. And yeah, it's going to be on ARD, which is quite exciting. And yeah, it was shot up in Leeds, but it was a German-speaking production.
Kate Ivory Jordan, who's an all-round talent, you know, dancer, actress, model, singer.
The main reason as to why I do so many things is because I get bored so easily. And that's not just like, oh, well, that is boring, like the things that I'm doing are boring. It's just that I need a stimulus constantly, something new to focus on, something. I hate being stagnant. So if I feel like I'm in a place in my life where everything is comfortable, then I'm not really happy, because I feel like I need to grow, I need to do something, I need to kind of evolve in some way. So I think that's why I have chopped and changed and done this for a bit and gone here, because I just need something new.
Marta Gornicka, who is a singer and currently studying jazz performance at the Guildhall School of Music. Another really interesting thing that you just said is you started your own jam session because you worked at the Canvas Cafe, and that's actually where we met. And that was actually my first jam session I've ever gone to as a tap dancer. So
exciting.
I know, it's crazy. It's like your jam session for me opened so many doors, because first of all I met you, and then it was Michael Seal on bass, who and then I became friends with Michael Seal. Just off this jam session we exchanged numbers and we kind of kept in touch. He took me to a few further jam sessions where I just became a regular at all these jam sessions. And for me it was really important because there was not so many tap dancer friendly jam sessions out there that I knew. So your jam session opened so many doors also in my life, which is crazy because I just went literally, I think I messaged you like on the same day, if because I saw it on the Facebook events, because I live quite close to the area, so it was like within the 2-mile radius or whatever Facebook suggests you. And I messaged you, I think on the same day. It's like, hi, do you allow tap dancers? And you're like, yeah, of course. So
Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, just call.
That was amazing.
No,
that was.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
I had Leila Ustinkaya, who's a visual artist and multimedia artist. When it comes to being an artist, like part of it is creating the art, which most artists love, and it comes more natural to them. But the other part is also getting it seen, getting it into galleries, creating your own shows. What's your experience with pushing your work out to be seen?
I think that's the hardest part of it for me, because it's a total different kind of work that we have to do, getting exposure, using social media. There's few parts into it, I guess. Collaborating with other artists and setting up exhibitions or performances and inviting people and keeping on the background all the work posted. So there's 2 stages for me into it. So the first stage is nice and it's quite straightforward, interacting communally, deciding, putting the show up, especially with you as well, with Resonance. Then when we put things together, it's really straightforward and it's hands-on. But then there's all the background work with the website and the promotions and stuff. Yeah, it always does my head, it's true. But once you find enjoyment into it, it's kind of 50% of the work. If you're gonna choose to be an active artist and living and working in London as an artist, it's gonna for me it does take about 30-40% of the work and of the time. And sometimes I find myself, oh, I'm not doing any art right now. It's been a while. I've just been like clicking on some buttons and just posting some stuff, or like organizing or doing admin or doing accounts or things like that. Artists not involved with art, so it's all the background work is taking a lot of space actually. So I think it's really, yeah, it's there with it.
Episode 6 was with Anula Kolakovska, who is a tap dancer and tap studio owner, and she lives in Warsaw and built up her studio from scratch, from nothing pretty much, in Warsaw. And she puts on shows regularly with her students. They do competitions regularly. So it was great to talk to her about that.
I organized small workshops for people, only beginners, because there were not many people who wanted to tap. So actually it was just workshops for total beginners. And actually from that time, I created first small group of my students, of my own students. They wanted to learn more. And this was the beginning actually of Tip Tap, which is now my studio in Warsaw.
I had Orly Freire, who's also works very closely with me. We've met in 2019, and since then we work together all the time. She's one of the founders of Resonance Performances, and we do a lot of projects together, either with Resonance Performances or as a collaboration with the two of us.
Yeah, I'm really passionate by psychology and philosophy. Actually, I am, in the past, I wanted to become almost a psychologist or psychoanalyst doing this kind of things, because it's very linked to the mind, and it's a way to do introspections and learning and understanding more about what is inside you. And actually doing art is almost, I think for most of the artists, the psychoanalysis is because you express what is inside you, and you try to understand what is you want to say, because sometimes you don't know exactly what is in your mind, and you just want, by making it visual, you can understand better what is around, and how and which direction you want to take. So I am also I have a passion for science, because in the past I studied mathematics, and so I like the scientific approach as well. So all these subjects are for me extremely linked, and actually, like during Resonance, it's an amazing. The thematic came a bit after, actually, in the Resonance 2, when we added this. The first thematic was metamorphosis. The one you took part was dreams, and the one online, memories on the art of resilience. So it's really tricky now to imagine a Resonance with no thematic, because it's definitely leading the musician, the way they play, and the dance, the painting, everything. And actually, this is because I have a passion for it. I was thinking, okay, let's integrate some teams, and actually, like, also because I have this theatrical approach, I'm passionate by theater. Adding the dimension of a thematic, it's a bit like almost feeling doing a play, a theater play. So because there is almost a script in a way that is unwritten, but that's behind the screen, because people follow this energy of the thematic.
Tarek Quiz, who's a dancer and a choreographer.
I did like mentoring programs within my classes, so which you were involved in. I remember, like, in the first start of it. And what I've done now with it is that I created like a 3-month intensive where we meet once a week, and it will be 2 hours of class, and we'll train, and I'll give them feedback, mentor them with what they need and how I can feel that they can develop within their craft. And then I've now taken that and made it into a dance intensive in New York. So what I do is I take dancers from here, from London, who have signed up, and take them to New York to train privately with a few faculty members that I have trained with over there, and know that can give them great wisdom, and within the same kind of message that I am, within encouragement and all that jazz.
Shada Mas, who's also a dancer and choreographer.
It's always like a fusion of styles. So for me, because there's so much fusion in me, it makes so much sense to have a company that's like so different, because like everyone brings like something completely different to the table, and it for me is a lot more interesting, you know. Mm-hmm. So when I came, it was always the dream, you know, to have my own company, because I was always like commissions, I was working for different companies, until it was clear that I just needed to create my own company. And London gave me that, you know, gave me the possibility. I moved in 2016 to London.
Ago, wow. And Anissa, who's a photographer, fine arts photographer. It was great speaking to her. She took some pictures of me also previously, last year. I think 2020, late 2020, she took some pictures of me. Black and white is not as easy as people think, because people think, on Instagram you can put a black and white filter, but not every color. Like if you want to do fine arts photography, I guess you're gonna focus a little more if your black and white conversion of all the colors that are in the picture actually convert to the degree of gray that you want it to be, rather than like just putting a filter on.
It's really like you notice things. So my eye sees things. So a flat image, if you have no contrasting shadows, even if sets color and you convert that to a black and white, it's still flat. So you, even with the black and white, you would have to make it so punchy and add so much grain and sharpen it so that it pops out at you to make it come alive. Whereas if you've used nice shadows, the need for that becomes minimal because you're so focused on what the light has done to the subject, which is far more beautiful. And then the conversion is just a soft conversion. You don't need to do an awful lot.
Nikki Franklin, who is a composer, educator, and musician and vocalist, pianist and vocalist. And I'm part of a group Ecstasies, which is a quartet with accordion, tap dance, voice, and poetry.
I had 2 young children and I was leaving my husband. And I thought I can't sustain being a single parent with just doing gigs. It's not going to happen for me. So I went back to university. So I did my undergrad. So whenever it was, I did my undergrad in music. Which was interesting times down at university in Sussex. And that's when I started composing. So that's the thing with things like university, is it opens you to opportunities and places and events that you might not otherwise have been privy to. So, and that's where I started composition. I did jazz studies on the side, so they shipped me up to the Guildhall once a week for jazz, piano and singing lessons. And I ended up getting a first in my degree, which was like, wow, that's cool. So, and also as part of doing that, I joined the London Vocal Project because of my link with the Guildhall. And through some other friends who were musicians in London, I joined Pete Churchill's vocal group up in London, and that really got me sort of into the London scene.
Then I had Claire Zakiewicz, who's a visual artist and performance artist.
I did printmaking, and I was making like multimedia visual artwork, and then I did a master's in the physical and metaphorical relationships between sound and drawing. So I was reading a lot then, and it was more philosophy and psychology alongside making work as well, like alongside a practice of kind of, but it was more research. Mm-hmm. So I was doing lots of scribbles, and that was when I started to draw without looking and just practice, just listening. And so I started like closing my eyes or wearing a blindfold.
Adam Lowe, who's a poet and a performer, who's also part of Ecstasy. So he's a poet in Ecstasy, where I'm the tap dancer.
Poets who are also performers, such as Jerry Potter, Romy Smith, Khadija Ibrahim. And so these were people who generally performed their work instead of just reading it. And they were on another level, really. Like the poems were really, really good on the page, and they worked on the page, and what they wrote was really, really moving and well written and layered and textured, but they were also able to bring that to the stage. And I think sometimes some poets only do one or the other. They're really good on stage, but the poems are not as good when you read them on paper, or vice versa. The poems read really, really well on paper, but they're not very good at performing them. And I was really keen that as a self-employed person, I wanted to make a career out of this. So I thought I need to have all the skills, in my tool set. And so that's why I really kind of worked on performance and how I could slot that into things.
And Jonas Nermel, tap dancer and founder of the Stockholm Tap Festival.
I grew up watching all these old dancers from the swing era and whatever you could get your hands on, because there was no YouTube when I grew up. Yeah, it was, of course, as we know, all mostly white dancers. You could see some movies with Nicholas brothers, and they were then, of course, my favorite. So I tried to dance like them, like splits, and yeah, I couldn't jump up the wall, but maybe some flips and splits. But yeah, it was, so that's same now. I can't do splits anymore, but like that's who I look up to still.
So normally when I record it, I edit it first. I edit everything in Premiere Pro, and then I export it once as a movie for YouTube, and now in season 2 I'm also making it available on all podcast platforms. So I export it a second time as just an audio track. I normally build a thumbnail. I ask people to send me some pictures. On the YouTube video I always normally include a little intro with a few pictures and a little bit of music. So yeah, that's what I do. Like, that's kind of the most obvious things. Then I create a separate Instagram post, because obviously the YouTube thumbnail has a certain format, and obviously Instagram has its own format. So I make an Instagram post, and I also make some stories that I can use to promote the podcast with. I create the YouTube thumbnail and the Instagram stories and the Instagram post in Canva, and I just use the free version of the app. And then I also write a newsletter for my mail out list. I'm trying to grow my mailing list, so if you want to sign up, it's in the description box. I'd be very happy if you signed up. And I include any pictures the artist might have sent me, maybe some videos, and also obviously the link to the video in YouTube. And that's kind of what I use to promote. So it's like mailing list, Instagram, YouTube, and then I share from YouTube. I normally share it to Facebook and LinkedIn. My goals for the podcast are to, first, I want to speak to kind of a project manager or a producer about it, if there's any opportunities to get some funding for it. At the moment, I just do it as my own project, but I want to see sometimes podcasts get like Arts Council funding or any other funding. Like, I want to see if there's an option for me in there. Obviously, I'm accepting donations if people wish to donate, but it's not like a huge thing to be getting donations at the moment, at least. Another goal is to start show notes on my website for the podcast and have kind of like a blog style, a blog on my website talking about the podcast, because I think it draws because I think it can help drawing traffic to your website. That's another goal. And other than that, I just want to, keep making connections with people, talk to people. I'm so inspired by doing this podcast because, I learned so much from the other artists. I am inspired by their stories. I'm motivated as soon as I get off the call, because it's just really motivating to listen to, people being motivated, being inspired, being hardworking. It's a great environment to be. So yeah, I just want to keep on keeping on. And I'm sharing this with you just in case you want to start a podcast or anything like that. You kind of know my early beginnings. I think it's always scary to look at people who've been doing things like that for a long time. And they seem so accomplished, and they seem like they've got it all together. And not everybody has that. But everybody started somewhere. And I started somewhere. I mean, I've released 15 episodes, and now I'm just starting season 2. So I'm not accomplished yet. I'm not somebody, nobody knows about my podcast. But I'm still doing it, and I'm still benefiting from it. I'm making so many great connections, and it's a truly inspiring experience. So I wanted to make this video for everyone that's hesitating to do it. I think no energy is ever wasted. You always get back what you put out there. So just start. Just record your first episode, and from then on everything is going to be so much easier than you thought. Thanks everyone for watching, and please like, comment and subscribe.